for me. For me, the best way to write is to think every single day.
Interesting. So I'd like to tap into some parts of your now book, especially since you kind of brought them up during your time working for the Clinton administration, and that you were not sure necessarily who you were or what you wanted to become. And there's some parts about your book that talk about calling and connection and contribution and control. I think calling is a huge part of the start of this. A lot of people are not sure, especially let's say you're in the arts and you automatically assume that maybe because you grew up with some kind of artistic background or some kind of good artistic skills that maybe that is your calling. So when you think about calling, how do you think about it, and how do you help people, or at least some suggestions you give people to find ways to find a goal bigger than themselves that necessarily isn't just one, like, say, job title?
Yeah, so I would say that, let me say why I think we get calling wrong first.
Okay.
I think we get calling wrong because we confuse it with purpose, higher purpose, lofty purpose. And we think that the only people who have purpose are like Mother Teresa feeding the lepers in India. That we think that if we look up purpose in the dictionary, there's going to be a picture of her, or a picture of a friend of ours, like with her judgmental finger wagging in your face, like, that's not, she's like holier than thou, right? More committed than thou. And the truth is, I did look up purpose in the dictionary, and here's what it means. It means the reason for which something is done. That's it. That is the entire definition of purpose. It is the reason for which something is done. And so we think that our purpose has to be this bigger than life thing, that it's got to be so worthy that it's got to be the white hat, right? And it doesn't. If your purpose is curing cancer, then great. If your purpose is getting yourself out of debt so you and your family can live in financial freedom, then great. And if your version of purpose is buying a Maserati and a beach house, that's great too. That's your purpose, right? That is it. And the only person who should get a vote is you. And the problem is that we keep giving votes in our life to people who shouldn't even have voices. And that's where it all goes off. That's where it all goes off the rails, because we turn to Instagram and we see people that are like, they pretend that they have this calling, this thing that like comes out of them like a beam of light from their inner soul. And it's not necessarily true. And frankly, even if that is your calling at that point in your life, it's going to change. My calling when I was young and single and working on the presidential campaign was really different than my calling was when I had a 6-week-old baby and I was founding my last company. It's really different than what my calling is now as I'm traveling all over the world doing a book tour and trying to get, to get under Oprah's Sunday Soul Sunday conversations. Calling is different at every age and at every life stage, as are the rest of the parts of what I describe as consonance in the book, this thing that actually puts us in alignment and flow. But I think we get calling wrong because we're defining it as this bigger thing. And really, calling just has to be some gravitational force that you feel. It could be a business you want to build. It could be art that you want to complete. It could be a family that you want to grow. It could be a bottom line that you want to contribute to. It could be a societal ill that you wish to cause, that you wish to solve. All it has to be is something that matters to you.
Interesting. What would you say to someone who says that they are, I don't know, too young or too old to either, use their calling to do something bigger than themselves or to, start something new? What would you say to someone who has that kind of, limitation?
Honestly, I'd say that the calling isn't that important to them.
Interesting.
You hear people all the time saying, I'm too busy for this, I'm too busy for that. I wish I could go back to grad school, but I'm too busy. Or I wish I could run that marathon. I wish I could train for a marathon like you, but I'm too busy. Or I wish I could do. When I tell people, when they say that, when someone's like, oh, I'm too busy, what I hear is, it's just really not that important to me. I think we all find time for the things that actually really matter to us. And if they don't really matter to us, then, he's not that into you, right? Like, it just does, and that's okay, right? Like, it's okay if there's something that you want to do, but you really don't want to do it right now. Like, life is long. There's an opportunity to do things at other times. And then I think there are people who have actual real limitations, where It's financial. Maybe they've got small children. Maybe they're taking care of dying parents. Maybe they do actually have to finish that degree. I think that there are those people too. And I think that's where, this is where my 16-year-old son talks about the side quest in video games. Mm-hmm. Do you play video games?
No, not really, but okay. I'm familiar with the side quest though.
Yeah, well, I had never heard of it before, but one day I had woken up and had just a terrible night of sleep, and I was taking my son on a weekday to the dentist office, and we were sort of waiting for the dentist, and I was bemoaning the fact that I had to have this chapter done that day, and I was supposed to write, and I was so tired, and I didn't know if I could do it. And he said, well, just go on a side quest. I was like, what the hell's a side quest? And he said, well, sometimes when like I finish up the dishes really fast after dinner, and I go up to my computer, and then I get really annoyed because my friend's like still doing his dishes at his family's house. He can't log in yet. And really like all I want to do is I want to go to the castle and slay the dragon and save the princess. He's like, well, I can't do it because my friend isn't logged in yet. So I can go on a side quest. I can till the wheat. I can cut it. I can bring it to the market. I could sell it. I could get some money so I can buy the horse and the dragon so that when I finally do go on the main quest, go to the castle, slay the dragon, I can save the princess. He's like, so just do a side quest. Like the side quests are the things that are not in line with your calling, with the main thing you want to do, but they're additive once you get there. So for people who say, I can't do it just quite yet because of these specific time limited or resource limited things, there's plenty of side quests you can do, like listen to podcasts like this, or go to conferences, or read books, or watch TEDx talks, or do informational interviews, or create a network. There's so many things that we could be doing right now that are ancillary, that are calling proximate. They are our side quests. They're not directly in line with our main quests. But they're there so that when we do finally get on the horse to go to the castle and slay the dragon, it's easier to save the princess.
Mm-hmm. With everything that you are doing right now, I know that you are, you get on stage often and you're writing books. The times when you first felt apprehensive, maybe about writing your first book or even getting up on stage, how do you approach fear and push past it?
Oh, it's terrifying to get on stage. Absolutely. For me, at least. And it's terrifying to write something and put it out into the world. There's nothing scarier than that minute you press send and then you just sit and you wait. You don't know what's going to happen. I am right now in this place where I am watching the Amazon.com reviews come in, and I'm just waiting for the first gut-wrenching, horrible, just eviscerating review, and I know it's coming. It's only been out for like 5 days, so right now it's mostly my friends reviewing it, but I know it's coming and it's going to be bad. So here's what I do. I know that there are some people for whom my message deeply resonates, and they're like, yes, where have you and the permission you're giving me been all my life? And then there are some people who just ain't picking up what I'm laying down. And those just aren't my people. And that's okay. So for me, it comes down to saying there are going to be some people who love me and there are going to be some people who hate me. And I can't have people who love me without the people who hate me, because if you're just kind of milquetoast in the middle, then everyone just likes you. Fine. Nobody does anything if they like you, but they will move if they love you. I was on the Today Show last month, and I was on the 10 a.m. hour, the Hoda and Jenna Bush Hager hour. And most of the people on that hour are stay-at-home moms. That's what I was told by the producers. So I worked very hard to just like soften it up a little, to be a little more gentle, to be more of the warm hug and less of the punch in the face. And, I had soft hair, I had soft makeup, I was wearing an aubergine colored dress. I'm athletic, and so I have a lot of muscles, and I was wearing a sleeve to cover my muscles. Like I was just very toned down. Even my sister called me and was like, I like this version of you. And she goes, I like this is good. And then I got a bunch of emails from people saying, I really liked you on the show, and I went to your website, and it's amazing. Like everything you're telling me is great. And then I got some emails from people saying, I really liked you on the show. You were so lovely and articulate and uplifting. And then I went to your website, and I felt like I was being assaulted by the foul language. And the foul language was like, HE double hockey sticks.
Right.
Not exactly. I mean, there's some F-bombs. Sure, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I like a good F-bomb, good punctuation mark. But the pieces in particular that these individuals were talking about were not egregious. Mm-hmm. and I sat with them for a little bit, and I actually emailed back and forth with a couple of these women, mm-hmm. what particular was it? Because I was just curious, and they were surprised that I was interested in conversing about it, because like the stuff they sent me was a little bit like you're going to burn in double hockey sticks.
Oh wow.
But I wanted to learn more about sort of how I was coming across, and what I really said in the day was, I'm just not going to be for them, and that's okay, because somebody else will be for them, and that's going to be great for all of those people involved. But for the rest of them, I can't reach the people I want to reach with the power and the audacity and the energy if I tone it down to try to be something for everyone. I have to just be all in for the people who are my people.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you're not going to bring out the softer side of Laura moving forward?
Well, I mean, I'm learning to do it. I'm learning to sort of honor people's experience and their pain. It's interesting. I very often when I'm speaking to, audiences of 2,000 people, I'll bring people on stage and do like live coaching in the moment. Mm-hmm. And, the hardest part of that for me is not solving the random problem that somebody might come up with in that moment on stage, but it's not jumping directly to the answer and honoring their pain and their suffering and their misery and their confusion and their loneliness or whatever it is, and just giving them that second, hugging them, applauding with the audience for their courage for sharing, and then walking them through with these catalyzing questions to help them see the solution on their own. But, I am such a problem solver that for me, if I were to look in the last 10 years of my life, I would say that's like the biggest maturity moment, is understanding that sometimes people just want company in their misery before they want a pathway to solution.
Sure. Good to know. So with everything that you've done and experienced so far, what would you say has been the best advice that you have ever received?
Oh. The best advice I've ever received is this. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard. You're just not that important.
Interesting. Who said that to you?
So there is a woman who I know who she founded and ran the first and largest in-house, like in building daycare for major corporations. And she built this company and grew it, and then sold it for like $60 million, like 15 years ago, when $60 million was even more money than it sounds like it is right now. And I was talking to her one day. We were having lunch. I'd gotten to know her through a mutual friend, and she'd asked me what this mutual friend's advice was to me, this mutual male friend. And I told her, and she's like, "Oh, you need some girl advice. That's terrible advice. Come, send me an email. We'll have lunch." Mm-hmm. So we had lunch. And I was complaining about how, I don't know, I was complaining. And she was like, I don't understand what's wrong. You've got a growing business, a happy marriage, healthy children. What's the problem? And I said, I yell at my kids too much. And she said, well, why? Tell me about your day. So my kids at that point were in elementary school, and I told her all about how I worked all day long. Then I'd pick them up from school. We'd go to the playground, and then I showed her my Trio at the time. It was a little while ago. And I said, I've got this, PDF device, and so I can be at the park, but I can also be in the office, and it's really great. And she was like, wait. She's like, you're not in either place if that's what you're doing. And I was like, what are you talking about? I can be in both. She said, listen, she goes, you're not that important. Mm-hmm. You're just not that important. She said, and at the time, I'm building my business, I'm building my family, I'm serving on boards in my community. I felt like I was really important to everybody in all places. Mm-hmm. But she said, if you're building a business that you can't step away from for an hour at 3 p.m. to take your kids to the park, you're either not building a big enough or strong enough business, or you're a micromanager. She said, and if you are, She said, and if you're raising a family that can't imagine you not being with them every waking moment when they're not at school, like, you can put them in front of the TV, have them watch Sesame Street, give them some ice cream. At them, then of course I was like, well, TV and ice cream are the twin towers of hell. It's just awful. And right. I later find out that her daughter's like the head of children's television programming at PBS. But I was like, at that point,